Hello and welcome back to the Courtroom Advocate channel. Thanks for watching. Today I'm thinking about whether all the cases that come into the judicial system are necessary. I came across a case that I thought was really petty and should never have ended up being a court matter or even coming up to the judiciary, but it did come, and I was thinking, was that necessary? Was it even good use of time? And actually I was also thinking, what purpose was the matter serving? So I met some two young boys, quite young. They must have been around 10, 11 in the system. So one day when we were seated in the prosecution, the children's court in the prosecution office, as we did, waiting for the children to be brought to court. So two young boys are brought in, and so we check quickly with the police who had brought them, what is the matter, what are they charged with. Shockingly, they have been charged with stealing a football. For me, the first thing, even before I knew the rest of the detail, I'm thinking, a boy and a football in court. For me, I was thinking it's more like, asking a dog not to pick a bone. If a boy meets a ball that is misplaced somehow, and I'm not advocating for stealing, but also sometimes we do set up our kids for mischief, So in this particular case, these two boys were charged of stealing a football. So, and the boys were not denying actually they had the football. They say, yeah, we had the football. But the circumstances were even what was more intriguing. So the boys lived behind one of those international schools. And the international school had a field. And when the kids are playing their games, sometimes they would, throw the balls over the fence. And it would go now to the village where these kids live. So the kids are just minding their own business, having kid plays outside, and then they come across a ball. So for them, they pick the ball and, boys and balls, and they started using the ball. And then later on, now the headmaster of this particular school went looking for the ball, sent people to look for the ball, and the boys were found with the ball. And that's how they were charged and brought to court. I thought it was such a waste of time for both the school, the community, the parents, these kids, Someone would reason that this was a lesson for the boys, but I honestly thought there would have been even better ways of the boys learning a lesson without wasting so many people's time and the court time, the prosecution, the police. This is a matter that should have been handled at community level, where the school administration should have just talked to the community that lived around them and sorted the matter out, and maybe even had counseling for the boys or advising the boys, when our property falls this side, this is where you actually brought it, because maybe the boys would have even wanted to report to return the ball to the school, but there's a high wall and there's no access to this school. So for them, they went ahead to use a ball. So it is a community. For me, it was more something for a community level. Of course, when the matter came, we listened to it, and then we summoned the headmaster, now who is the complainant. We had a sitting in the office, and he said, no, I'm just irritated that the boys keep picking the balls when our students are playing and they fall down there, so it's getting out of hand. That's why I took this particular action. We did ask, have you consulted with the community? Of course, he had not engaged the community and so forth. So we advised that that is what it should happen. So what we did in this particular matter, the prosecutor decided that the matter was not worth prosecuting. So the boys were asked to apologize to the headmaster for, picking their ball, and they were advised what to do if they found any other balls. So this was one of the beginning of what we call the diversion policy or programs, because we came across so many cases of children who did not deserve to be in the system. So diversion is where you look for ways, alternative ways of dealing with a case without necessarily bringing it to the judicial system. And this is one case that would have been helped in that situation. So the diversion program is a way of ensuring that children do not necessarily get into the judicial system. So there are different alternatives, you know. For instance, an apology, they could even be putting in programs directly, rehabilitation programs, or even medical programs where it's a matter that needs medical attention. So there are different ways of doing it, giving a warning, you know, apologizing, sometimes even compensating, you know, like just returning the ball and asking, maybe in this particular case, do you have any other balls? Do you know where they are? Could you just return them to us? So it is a program that is very necessary at the moment, especially given the kind of trauma and the kind of impact that incarceration or children being in custody that they get. So this is one way of preventing children getting stigmatized because of incarceration. We also know that in prisons, for instance, in Kenya, it is just recently that now we have a remand home for boys that is away from adults. So, and when it's full, some boys are still held together with adults at the industrial remand. So when they're there, they get to interact with the adults who are, you know, maybe totally messed up, and they learn even, you know, one's habits and so on. So kids should only get into the system as a matter of last resort. It is in the best interest of a child that they should not get into the system unless it's a matter of the last resort, that you have tried all the other options and this is the only option. And this also applies to parents, you know. Do not push your children into the system. You only bring your child, you know, you take them to the police station as a matter of last resort. I'm sure that there's nothing else you can do. But also you need to be aware of the consequences of that particular interaction. It could be, I know some have come in and said, I just wanted to scare them, you know, and I want them to spend a night in the police station. But when they're there, remember, most police stations do not have separate cells for boys, for kids and adults. So they might be held there, and abuse can happen, you know. They can get even worse by just the interactions they are having. So, and also the rebellion can even get harder, you know. You took me to police one, you know, I survived it, take me again, and so forth. So going back to diversion, it's one way of decongesting even our prisons, ensuring that only necessary people, you know, those ones who cannot survive or who are a danger to the community are in there. It also eases the prosecution work, so that prosecution does not have so many cases to prosecute, which end up being them not doing a very good job because they're overworked. So also it saves the court time, and also it's also a very good way of reconciliation, because once one goes through the system, the bitterness that they acquire might not give leeways for reconciliation. But with diversion, you can bring a victim and the perpetrator together and say, is there a way you can reconcile? What, for the victim, what would it take for you to feel that justice is done? Sometimes it's just restitution, just getting what they lost back, and maybe an apology. Sometimes it's maybe if it's an assault matter, you know, they fought, and you know, maybe paying some damages to the person, paying their medical bills, whatever losses they had, and so on. So I would encourage, even for instance, the police, you know, in this particular matter, you know, it was even shocking that the police thought this was a matter to bring to court. And maybe I also understand, you know, this is an international school, maybe they felt they had to, or because the headmaster was insisting it must be brought. But now the police have the powers to request diversion from prosecution, so that not every matter comes to the court. It will save the whole community, even as a country, a lot of time, a lot of stigma. Our children will be better taken care of. So this is my advice. Not every case needs to come to court. If you're arrested, your child is arrested, could you ask, is there a way we can sort this matter before it comes to court? It is in the best interest of the child, and it will save you a lot of time. Thank you. Look forward to the next video.